basically plagiarism using digital computers. It's a software question. However, quantum computers is bigger than that.
For 2,000 years, Alexandria and its vast knowledge has been lost to humanity. But scientists using revolutionary quantum AI have just done the impossible. They are digitally reconstructing thousands of texts from the legendary Library of Alexandria. Could these reconstructed texts change everything we know about human history? The greatest wonder of the ancient world. Alexandria wasn't just any ancient city. Founded by Alexander the Great himself around 331 BCE, it quickly became the intellectual capital of the ancient world. But what made Alexandria truly special was its legendary library, perhaps the greatest collection of knowledge ever assembled in human history. For centuries, the destruction of this library has symbolized one of humanity's greatest cultural tragedies. Thousands of scrolls containing irreplaceable knowledge went up in flames or slowly crumbled to dust. The voices of countless ancient authors fell silent, leaving us with mere fragments and tantalizing references. But what if we could bring back those lost voices? What if modern technology could resurrect the knowledge that vanished 2 millennia ago? That's exactly what scientists at the Quantum Historical Reconstruction Project claim to have achieved in 2025. Using cutting-edge quantum computing trained on ancient linguistic patterns and surviving text fragments, they've begun reconstructing works long thought lost forever. We're not talking about recovering a few lost paragraphs here. These researchers claim they're bringing back complete works by Sappho, the brilliant poet whose surviving genuine verses amount to just 650 lines. They say they're recovering Aristotle's legendary second book of Poetics focused on comedy, a work scholars have hunted for centuries. This breakthrough doesn't just recover words on a page, it fundamentally changes our relationship with the past and our understanding of what can truly be lost. How quantum computing made it possible. The breakthrough happened when scientists combined a quantum classical hybrid AI system with thousands of ancient papyri fragments. They didn't discover new physical artifacts. Instead, they digitized existing fragments from places like Herculaneum, Oxyrhynchus, and previously untranslated Middle Eastern archives. What happened next amazed the academic world. The AI didn't just organize these fragments, it began generating stylistically accurate text that experts believe belongs to specific ancient authors. The system produced passages that scholars attribute to lost works by Sappho, Aristotle, and even early Egyptian texts on astronomy that were thought destroyed when the library declined. One reconstructed excerpt from what appears to be an ancient astronomical text speaks about the sky communicating through silence rather than thunder, revealing secrets of what they called the divine ether. This passage combines poetic language with astronomical insights in a way that impressed classical scholars worldwide. The system wasn't just making things up, it modeled what researchers call linguistic probability clouds based on each author's unique style, analyzing sentence patterns, rhythm, vocabulary choices, and philosophical frameworks. By studying the surviving fragments of authors like Sappho and Aristotle, the quantum system identified patterns that worked like a linguistic fingerprint. These fingerprints allowed the AI to reconstruct works with amazing accuracy, revealing that ancient Greek thinkers had potentially figured out early versions of gravity, atomic theory, and even heliocentric ideas centuries before their modern rediscovery. The quantum system wasn't just recovering lost texts, it was recovering lost minds, rebuilding thought patterns that had been silent for 2,000 years. Inside ancient Alexandria's lost wonders. To fully appreciate these reconstructions, we need to understand what Alexandria truly was. This wasn't just another ancient city. It stood at a crossroads of cultures, partly Greek, partly Egyptian, and influenced by ideas from across the known world. Its famous lighthouse, the Pharos, stood as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, guiding ships from across the Mediterranean into its bustling harbor. But the technological innovations of Alexandria went far beyond its famous lighthouse. When historians Tom Holland and Dominic Sandbrook discussed Alexandria on their podcast, The Rest is History, they touched on something remarkable about this ancient metropolis. Holland mentioned how Alexandria was this syncretic place, partly Greek, partly Egyptian, making it truly fascinating. What made Alexandria extraordinary were its innovations. The city featured pneumatic systems that created automatic doors, entryways that would open seemingly by magic as people approached. It had sophisticated banking systems that connected financial markets across the Mediterranean world. And perhaps most surprisingly, Alexandria reportedly had devices resembling early slot machines, mechanical wonders operated by inserted coins. These weren't primitive prototypes, but sophisticated technologies that wouldn't become commonplace again until thousands of years later. The reconstructed texts suggest the library contained far more advanced knowledge than previously believed. Water pumps, pneumatic tubes, even early steam-powered devices. The Great Library itself was more than just a collection of books. It was the world's first comprehensive research institution. Scholars lived and worked there, conducting experiments, writing commentaries, and teaching students from across the Mediterranean. At its height, it reportedly housed between 400,000 and 700,000 scrolls, a staggering number for the ancient world. The library wasn't destroyed in a single catastrophic event, as popular myths suggest. Rather, it declined through a series of disasters and gradual neglect over several centuries. Julius Caesar's fire in 48 BCE damaged part of it. Later, religious conflicts and changing political priorities reduced support for this bastion of learning. By the time of the Arab conquest of Egypt in 641 CE, the Great Library had largely ceased to exist as a functioning institution. What we lost wasn't just a collection of books, it was an entire intellectual ecosystem. The conversations, debates, and cross-pollination of ideas that happened when diverse thinkers worked in close proximity disappeared. Works by hundreds of authors vanished completely, leaving us with tantalizing references and fragments that hint at vast bodies of lost knowledge. The technology behind the digital resurrection. The technology powering these reconstructions isn't just advanced, it's revolutionary. The quantum system that enables these textual resurrections uses what researchers call entangled linguistic vectors, a fancy way of saying the system can handle language patterns in an entirely new way. Unlike traditional AI that looks at words one after another, this quantum system tests billions of possible text reconstructions all at once, something regular computers simply can't do. This approach builds on ideas from pioneers in quantum computing. What makes quantum computing so powerful for this job is that ancient texts often contain gaps and unclear parts that create countless possible interpretations. Traditional computers would need centuries to explore all these possibilities. But quantum processors can check them all at the same time. The system uses a team approach between quantum and classical computing. Regular AI handles the basic preparation, organizing fragments, identifying languages, and setting up context. Then the quantum processors explore massive numbers of language patterns, checking countless potential reconstructions simultaneously. Classical systems then clean up and refine these outputs, creating a feedback loop that gets more accurate with each cycle. The most impressive part is the system's ability to handle connections between ideas that might appear far apart in a text but are linked in meaning. This lets the AI rebuild complete arguments and stories from scattered fragments, keeping everything logically consistent even when only pieces survive. When researchers tested the system with known incomplete texts and kept portions hidden as a control test, the AI rebuilt the missing sections with 83% accuracy, a level of precision previously thought impossible. Even more impressively, when tested against recently discovered fragments that weren't in the training data, the reconstructions matched the actual discoveries in ways that convinced many classical scholars the system was onto something real. Ancient voices speak again. The recovered texts span an amazing range of ancient knowledge, from poetry and philosophy to astronomy and mathematics. Let's look at a few of the most significant reconstructions that have emerged from the quantum system. One of the most striking recoveries involves the lost works of Sappho, the renowned poet from the island of Lesbos. Despite her fame in the ancient world, only about 650 lines of her poetry survive today. The quantum AI has reconstructed what appears to be complete poems that match her distinctive meter and vocabulary. These reconstructions reveal a voice both deeply personal and universally relatable, exploring themes of love, desire, memory, and the natural world with a sophistication that feels surprisingly modern. Even more historically significant are the reconstructions attributed to Aristotle's lost works. While we have a lot of Aristotle's writing, scholars estimate it's only about a third of what he actually wrote. The AI has reconstructed portions of his lost second book of poetics focused on comedy, a work philosophers have sought for centuries. The reconstructed text suggests Aristotle viewed comedy as more than just entertainment. He saw it as a way of exploring human flaws and social contradictions, a kind of ethical training through laughter. Another fascinating reconstruction comes from a text attributed to the philosopher Anaximander. The passage speaks of the boundless moving, not with the sun or moon, but with what they called the breath of the cosmos, with all things returning to it in necessity, as injustice in time must be paid. Researchers suggest this indicates a sophisticated understanding of cosmic forces we typically connect with much later scientific developments. One of the most thought-provoking reconstructions comes from a lost work attributed to Aristotle that speaks of movement without motion, as not a contradiction, but a principle of light, describing that which remains still yet causes change as the soul of the cosmos. This mysterious passage has sparked debates among classical philosophers and modern physicists alike. Is this an early conception of field theory, the idea that forces can act across space without physical contact? Or is it simply poetic language typical of ancient philosophical writing? Perhaps most fascinating is what these reconstructed texts reveal about the ancient Ptolemaic dynasty that built the library. These rulers were obsessed with collecting all human knowledge, creating what was essentially the world's first comprehensive research institution. The texts suggest they viewed knowledge as a form of power more valuable than military conquest, a perspective that led to Alexandria's intellectual dominance for centuries. What the AI discovered that humans missed. What truly amazed researchers wasn't just rebuilding lost texts, it was finding patterns human scholars had missed for centuries. The AI spotted hidden structures in ancient writing that lined up with star calendars and geometric forms known as Platonic solids. These patterns showed up consistently across works by different authors, suggesting they shared a framework of knowledge that went beyond individual writers. Even more remarkably, the system cross-referenced ancient myths in Sumerian and Egyptian texts with accurate astronomical data. The connections were too precise to be coincidental. This suggests these ancient authors weren't simply creating poetic stories. They were using symbolic language to encode natural laws. It's as if they developed a poetic way to describe physics and mathematics that modern science later abandoned for more literal descriptions. This ancient preference for theory over hands-on experimentation may explain why certain technologies weren't fully developed despite their advanced knowledge. The ancients had remarkable theoretical understanding, but different priorities for applying it. Their approach to knowledge valued seeing connections between fields we now separate. One striking discovery was a reconstructed passage from a previously unknown work attributed to Archimedes. The text describes how a sphere divided by equal planes, with light falling on its surface and reflected through curved mirrors, may focus at a single burning point and thus produce fire from geometry. This passage describes principles of optics and solar concentration that anticipated modern technologies by thousands of years. The reconstructions also reveal how ancient thinkers viewed time differently than we do. Rather than seeing time as a straight line moving forward, many ancient texts describe it as cyclical or layered. This perspective influenced their approach to history, science, and even mathematics in ways that feel foreign to modern thinking, but potentially offer alternative frameworks for understanding complex problems. What emerges from these reconstructions isn't just content, but context. Not just what ancient people knew, but how they thought. The AI hasn't just recovered texts. It's providing a window into thinking patterns and worldviews fundamentally different from our own. This could potentially offer alternative intellectual pathways, ideas developed in antiquity but lost before they could influence later thinking. The ethical questions behind digital resurrection. As these ancient texts emerge from the digital void, deep ethical questions arise. Should we even read these AI reconstructed works? Are we truly reviving ancient minds, or are we simply inventing our own stories about the past? This question has split the academic community. Some scholars argue these reconstructions offer a genuine window into lost knowledge, a form of digital archaeology that reveals authentic ancient voices. The computational linguist leading the Oxford team believes the quantum system isn't creating fiction. It's identifying patterns mathematically consistent with how these authors wrote, with a surprisingly high chance of capturing the essence of the original works. Critics counter that no matter how sophisticated, AI reconstructions will always contain modern interpretations. They argue we should be careful about accepting these texts as authentic ancient voices. Some point to the system's occasional hallucinations, plausible sounding but made-up content that doesn't match historical reality, as proof that we're projecting our own ideas onto the past. The Quantum Reconstruction Project has addressed these concerns by giving confidence scores to each recovered fragment. These scores let scholars distinguish between highly probable reconstructions and more speculative ones, providing a framework for responsible engagement with these digital artifacts. Serious ethical questions have also emerged about ownership. Should any private company own this reconstructed heritage? The research team has committed to open-source principles, arguing these reconstructed texts belong to humanity's shared cultural legacy rather than any institution or corporation. Privacy concerns also arise when the technology is applied to more recent historical figures. The same methods could potentially reconstruct private writings of individuals from the past few centuries, raising questions about posthumous privacy rights and consent. If we can reconstruct the thoughts of someone who died before digital privacy was even conceived, what obligations do we have regarding their intellectual property or personal privacy? Some philosophers have begun speculating about deeper implications. If we can reconstruct thought patterns of individuals from the distant past, are we creating a form of digital immortality? Could future generations use similar technology to commune with the minds of our time? These questions take us beyond archaeology into the realm of what some are calling temporal consciousness studies, the investigation of how human thought has evolved across millennia and how it might be preserved. The quantum magic behind the curtain. For those wondering how this technology actually works, the explanation goes deeper than typical machine learning. Traditional AI looks for patterns in data and makes predictions based on what's most likely. Quantum AI explores multiple possible realities simultaneously, a fundamentally different approach. The quantum system uses what physicists call superposition, the ability of quantum bits to exist in multiple states at once. When applied to language processing, this allows the system to evaluate countless possible reconstructions simultaneously rather than one after another. It can hold numerous potential versions of a text in a probability cloud, exploring all of them until the most coherent version emerges. The system also leverages quantum entanglement, where quantum particles become connected in ways that transcend physical distance. This property helps the AI maintain coherence across reconstructed texts, ensuring philosophical arguments maintain logical consistency even when scattered across different fragments. If one part of a text changes during reconstruction, entangled sections automatically adjust to maintain conceptual integrity. The lead researcher on the project's philosophical team explains that what they're doing goes beyond simple text generation. The quantum system models thinking patterns, ways of thinking that characterized these ancient authors. In a very real sense, they're resurrecting thought processes that have been silent for millennia. The system doesn't just predict what these authors might have written. It reconstructs their conceptual frameworks, logical pathways, even their cognitive biases. This represents a form of intellectual archaeology unlike anything previously possible. By modeling not just writing styles, but entire worldview, the quantum AI can generate text that follows the internal logic of ancient minds, even when addressing concepts they never explicitly covered in surviving works. This approach has applications far beyond ancient texts. Similar methods are being explored for reconstructing damaged historical documents, recovering faded inscriptions, and even modeling lost oral traditions. The quantum architecture provides a framework for understanding any human communication system, past or present, with unprecedented depth. Patterns across ancient cultures. The AI didn't just find what human researchers expected, it uncovered patterns scholars had missed for centuries. One of the most surprising discoveries involved cross-references between texts from different cultures that had never been connected before. The system identified mathematical ratios embedded in Greek philosophical texts that precisely matched astronomical cycles described in Egyptian hieroglyphics. These weren't vague similarities, but exact numerical correspondences, patterns too precise to be coincidental. This suggests a shared body of knowledge that crossed cultural and linguistic boundaries, challenging our understanding of ancient intellectual exchange. Even more intriguing were the structural patterns within texts themselves. Ancient authors apparently organized their works according to mathematical principles, not just in poetry, where rhythm is expected, but in prose, works on science, history, and philosophy. These structures created subtle connections between sections, reinforcing key concepts through mathematical harmony rather than just logical argument. A philosopher of science believes what they're seeing shows these weren't just philosophers in the modern sense. They were comprehensive natural scientists who expressed their findings through carefully structured language. These reconstructions might provide alternative intellectual pathways, ideas that were developed in antiquity but lost before they could influence later thinking. It's like discovering a parallel branch of human thought. The quantum AI also identified recurring patterns across different authors that suggest a shared intellectual framework, something like a hidden curriculum that shaped ancient thinking. These patterns appear too consistently to be coincidental, but were too subtle for human scholars to notice without computational assistance. One particularly fascinating discovery involves the cross-referencing of Egyptian astronomical texts with Greek philosophical writings. The AI found consistent mathematical patterns that suggest a shared scientific tradition spanning Mediterranean cultures, one that was more sophisticated and integrated than previously believed. This challenges our tendency to separate ancient knowledge into distinct cultural traditions and suggests a more cosmopolitan intellectual world than previously imagined. Ancient knowledge that challenges modern understanding. The reconstructed texts challenge many assumptions about ancient knowledge. Let's examine a few of the most surprising rediscoveries that have emerged from this quantum archaeology project. First is the revelation that ancient Greek thinkers had developed early conceptions of gravity centuries before Newton. The reconstructed texts suggest they understood gravity not as a force of attraction between bodies, but as a property of space itself, a perspective that aligns more closely with Einstein's general relativity than with Newtonian physics. Second is evidence that ancient astronomers had developed sophisticated models of planetary motion. While we've long known about Earth-centered models from surviving texts, The reconstructions suggest some ancient astronomers proposed sun-centered systems, similar to what Copernicus would introduce almost 2 millennia later. These ideas apparently didn't become dominant, but existed alongside other models, showing a diversity of astronomical thought previously unrecognized. Third is the discovery of advanced mathematical concepts. The reconstructions reveal ancient mathematicians had developed early versions of calculus, particularly for calculating areas under curves and rates of change. While not formalized with modern notation, these concepts allowed for sophisticated engineering and astronomical calculations. One of the most striking discoveries was a reconstructed passage from Archimedes describing principles of optics and solar concentration. This text outlines how curved mirrors can concentrate sunlight to a single point, creating intense heat, principles that anticipate modern solar thermal technologies by millennia. The reconstructions also reveal sophisticated ancient understanding of human psychology. Aristotle's recovered work on comedy contains insights into cognitive dissonance, psychological defense mechanisms, and the social function of humor that anticipate modern psychological theory. This suggests ancient thinkers had developed nuanced theories of mind that were lost during the transition to medieval thought. Perhaps most fascinating is what these texts reveal about the ancient approach to knowledge itself. Rather than our modern specialized disciplines, ancient thinkers developed integrated frameworks that connected astronomy, mathematics, ethics, politics, and arts within coherent philosophical system. This holistic approach might offer alternative ways of addressing complex modern problems that cross disciplinary boundaries. Verification and reality checks. It's important to understand the boundaries of what has actually been achieved. No physical scrolls were discovered. This is a digital reconstruction based on surviving textual fragments and linguistic patterns. The outputs from the quantum AI system are probability-based reconstructions, not certainties. Each fragment comes with a confidence score indicating how likely it reflects the original text. The director of the Digital Archaeology Institute emphasizes they're not claiming to have magically found lost scrolls. What they have are sophisticated, evidence-based reconstructions that represent their best understanding of what these texts might have contained. The system sometimes produces what researchers call hallucinations, plausible sounding but entirely made-up content that doesn't match historical reality. The team has implemented strict verification protocols to filter these out, applying multiple layers of authentication before accepting a reconstruction as valid. How do researchers verify these reconstructions? First, they test the system against known texts with artificially removed sections. If the AI can accurately rebuild the missing portions, it demonstrates the approach works. Second, they cross-reference reconstructions against historical facts and archaeological evidence. Third, they examine linguistic fingerprints, the sentence structure, word choice, metaphor usage, and philosophical frameworks to ensure they align with known works by these authors. Classical historians find it particularly convincing when these fragments connect to historical context we already know. They reference events, people, and ideas that make sense for the time period, sometimes in ways that reveal new connections between known historical facts. The most compelling validation comes when reconstructed passages align with partial fragments discovered through traditional archaeology, fragments too small to be meaningful on their own, but that suddenly makes sense when placed within the AI's larger reconstruction. In several cases, the quantum system reconstructed texts that were later confirmed by new papyrus discoveries, providing strong evidence for the method's validity. Nevertheless, significant limitations remain. The system works best with authors whose writing style is already well documented through surviving texts. It struggles with authors known only through brief fragments or secondary references. The confidence scores reflect these limitations, allowing scholars to distinguish between highly probable reconstructions and more speculative ones. From fiction to future reality. As this technology matures, the implications grow more profound. Could this approach eventually reconstruct complete philosophical works? What happens when AI completes Plato's unfinished dialogues or recovers the lost comedies of Aristophanes? The reconstructed works could fundamentally change our understanding of ancient thought. For instance, preliminary analysis suggests Aristotle's lost book on comedy contains insights into human psychology that anticipate modern theories by millennia. This raises fascinating questions about intellectual history. How many modern discoveries were actually rediscoveries of ancient knowledge lost when the library declined? Educational applications are already being developed. These reconstructed texts could revolutionize how we teach classical studies, providing students with a much richer corpus of ancient literature to explore. Educational technologists are developing immersive virtual environments where students can visit the recreated Library of Alexandria and interact with AI reconstructions of ancient scholars. The technology has applications far beyond Alexandria. Researchers are planning to expand their work dramatically, applying similar methods to other lost textual traditions around the world. Long-term goals include cross-training the quantum AI on oral traditions, indigenous knowledge systems, and encoded artifacts from civilizations worldwide. The aim is to create a comprehensive digital resurrection of human intellectual history. An anthropologist working with the project explains they're developing protocols to incorporate non-textual knowledge systems. Many cultures preserved their wisdom through oral traditions, symbolic art, or ritual practices rather than written texts. These are equally valuable forms of knowledge that they hope to recover using adapted versions of the quantum reconstruction approach. The implications extend beyond historical curiosity. This technology could serve as a cultural black box recorder for future generations, preserving not just what we explicitly record, but the underlying patterns of thought that characterize our time. Some futurists speculate that quantum AI might eventually bridge the gap between different historical periods, allowing us to trace how concepts evolved across millennia. The project's director believes what they're building is essentially a time machine for ideas. We can't physically visit the past, but we can reconstruct the mental landscapes of earlier eras with increasing accuracy. This approach could help recover not just individual texts, but entire intellectual ecosystems, the conversations, debates, and cross-pollination of ideas that made institutions like the Library of Alexandria so pivotal to human development. Thanks for watching another episode. While you are still here, make sure to click the video on your screen for more quality content.